live? I think we're live.
All right, well, welcome back to Book Chats with Mostly Books. I'm Jody.
I'm Jen.
And we're delighted you're back again. So, heads up again, we do not have anyone filming, so all comments will be addressed after we have filmed, and we will definitely do that.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. What do you think? Let's just start there.
Do we want to do a synopsis first?
Yeah. Well, no. First, yes. We'll do a synopsis first. Okay. Tell us a synopsis, Jen.
Okay, so it is about a group of college students at a very elite and private acting and arts academy. It's an arts academy, but the actors are kind of the main. They're the gem in the crown.
Yeah.
And it's about these 7 kids, and they're very close, and they've been very close all 3 years, and then their senior year, everything starts to go wrong. And it just gets more and more wrong till one of them is dead.
Yes.
And
then it continues to unravel.
Yeah, it continues to unravel until the very end.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that. There are going to be spoilers in this one because there's things we can't talk about without talking about spoilers.
Agreed.
So, we'll talk about general stuff
first, and then we'll try to do the spoilers towards the end. I think that's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. We'll try to hold to that.
And why did you like it?
I did like it. I really liked it.
I did too.
We both really liked it.
We really liked this one. I will say this is a book for anybody who enjoys Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't like Shakespeare even a little bit, this probably isn't the book for you because it's full and heavy of Shakespeare, which was fabulous.
It was. And it's very different than even the characters in the book say that if something's taught badly, you're going to hate it. So it's if you thought it was bad, but if you've ever seen Shakespeare in production, seen it rather than read it, you might enjoy this, especially if you want to give it a second chance.
We highly recommend giving it a second chance. Yep. So where I'm from, they do a lot of Shakespeare in the parks. I feel like they do that here.
I've been to one, but I don't think it happened last year, and it's not going to happen this year.
It didn't happen last year. I looked at it.
Yeah.
They're pretty fun, and I really enjoyed going to plays, and I really wished I lived close to this academy so that I could have went to these productions because they were amazing. The sets and everything are just stunning.
One of my friends in college was a theater major, and she was in The Tempest, and then we also went to see 12th Night. So those were a lot of fun. It's fun when college students get it because they really get the humor. Yeah,
I agree with that. So I felt like I really related with these characters. Okay, not the terrible
I guess
murder.
Which part?
But I have to say this, had been more talented at theater, this would have been the life I would have wanted. This would have been the school I would have wanted to go to, even though you could get cut every year, which would be really
program is
stressful.
They have to re-audition for their first 2 years.
I mean, it makes sense. In some ways, you have to get that thick skin. Not that you ever want to be kicked out of your school, but there's a reason it was an elite academy for acting, specifically Shakespeare only.
Yeah, Shakespeare. They only do Shakespeare.
So I really would have liked this life and this crew, minus the terribleness that happens. So yeah, that was my little caveat there. What were your first impressions of all of the 7 friends?
My first impression overall was a lot of Shakespeare. I thought I knew there was Shakespeare in it, but I didn't expect how much there was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, they live, breathe, talk.
You don't go 2 pages in this book without the bard being mentioned or quoted.
No, I loved it. I'm so sorry. I love the fact that they would quote in their everyday life random lines from Shakespeare. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
This is amazing.
This is my crowd.
Yeah, this is my crowd. I took 2 Shakespeare classes, and I loved both of them. But I really liked the characters. Okay, that's not to say I liked them as people.
Agreed.
But I did think they were interesting, and I didn't get bored of them if one of them, Oliver's our main point of view character, so it's told in his first person, so we find things out through him. So it wasn't ever when Oliver was hanging out with one of them that I was like, oh, you're boring, let's go.
No, they were all very interesting and had very interesting backstories that you only got hints of. I really would have liked a little bit more actually on everyone's backstory. It would have just added for me. I think this could have been longer.
Yeah, but it's also Shakespeare in his plays doesn't really give you a backstory unless you absolutely need to know it. So it's like he doesn't tell you. Like we'd have these questions in lecture, and my professor would be like, "Oh, you don't need to know," so he would tell you, and we're like.
It was very much that.
Yeah, I was like, hey, why is, like, in King Lear, the queen is dead. I was like, hey, why is the queen dead? Where is she? And he's like, oh, you don't really need to know.
It's not important.
I'm like, fine, this hasn't haunted me since high school.
That being said, I do feel some of that backstory would have been important on these characters. But we didn't get them because Oliver didn't get them.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you have more to say before?
Well, we'll just keep talking about the characters, so what do you think?
I also liked them. I thought they were very interesting. Their development was all very interesting as it continued, and you saw, I mean, they all felt very, not pigeonholed, but they all felt very typecast, and that became a whole topic as we continue. So that wasn't, I mean, they all knew, like, where they would be.
Yeah, they knew.
They could be like, yes, in this next play I'm going to be cast as this, and you'll be this and this.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
And they even talk, like, about how their roles and their typecast, like, bleed into their normal life and how they're acting. Or Oliver's talking to Colburn at one point, and he's...
The detective.
Yeah, the detective. And once he's realizes that he's playing a role, he's like, he was much less nervous. Yeah. He was much calmer.
Yeah, he really went into acting mode.
Yeah, and it's just like, that seems like a nice skill to have.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Do we also, before we want to get too far in, want to talk about the formatting? Because I was very excited about that.
I do.
Do you want to go? I'll let you tell them what it is.
Okay. It's formatted like a 5-act play. So it starts out with a prologue, and then it goes into Act 1, and each chapter is a scene. Yes. Each act also has a prologue before it, which isn't typical in Shakespeare plays, but it worked for this novel. And then there's an epilogue at the end. Like all the plays, even though most of the epilogues don't survive, but that's a whole thing. But I really loved it.
I think I squealed when I opened it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be 5 acts.
Did I text you? I was like, oh my gosh, it's 5 act structure. Yeah.
So I was also delighted about that. I was a little on the fence about the prologues initially because I'm like, this is not true to format. What are we doing? Now, that being said, I felt like we did need the prologues because each prologue is from Oliver's present day with him getting out of prison. So we know right away he went to prison for something, but we don't always know what until we keep going.
Yeah.
And he's coming back to tell the story of what happened to his classmate and all of that, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, it didn't bother me.
Me neither.
So we totally needed the prologues.
Yeah, we did.
And did you also notice that she would do a character's name and their line as if it was a play?
Yeah, I did. I thought that was weird at first because I like dialogue tags because they can say a lot about characterization. But it really worked. So the dialogue like moves really quickly, especially when they're kind of like snipping at each other.
Yeah.
And it just felt very natural.
They were very sibling-esque. I mean, they were, but they weren't because they were also kind of sleeping all around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when they were a solid group, it felt very siblingly. Not, again, when they were maybe
depends on, like, which
paired up.
relationship you're looking at, too. Because, like, Oliver, like, feels very, like, brotherly towards Ren a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, like, he and Philippa have that kind of bond. And the girls have that, like, a sisterly relationship with each other.
Well, and they talk about it several times, how there was such a group of siblings, and they were waiting for someone to try to dive into their sibling dynamics or rivalry. But
then you see, like, Oliver with his actual siblings, and it's
totally different. Like,
different.
This is his family he chose.
Yeah.
For better, for worse.
Yeah.
And that was his family, for better, for worse.
It has found family in it, but, like, disastrous found family.
Yeah, it was very dysfunctional found family, like
they, like
to a next level.
over the course of the novel.
Yes, they do, much like Shakespeare's characters do. Okay, what other topics do you want to discuss before we hit spoilers?
Can we talk about all the plays that are mentioned?
Yes, go ahead.
You go first. I talked about structure first.
Okay, so there was a bunch. We start off with them getting ready for Julius Caesar. Then we have Macbeth over Halloween. Then we had Romeo and Juliet over Christmas. And we end with King Lear. And that was just what they performed. I mean, we also had others. I mean, the second-year students were doing, what were they? Were Merchants of Venice, maybe? No.
Was it Measure for Measure? Or
Measure for Measure was mentioned. It wasn't Midsummer, because they did that the year before.
What's the other one starts with an N? It's not Mary Wise of Windsor.
No. I was thinking Merchant...
Is it Merchant of Venice?
Yeah, I really think it was that.
Okay.
Oh.
No, because...
Was it 12th Night?
Well, Philippa says they're doing 12th Night because they have twins or something. Or
maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
They were doing that one. And then Winter's Tale is also discussed.
Yes, Winter's Tale is also
throughout
discussed. We are going to discuss Winter's Tale.
I feel like we'll end up talking about all the plays.
Yeah, and then they talk about like the history plays, so like Henry V, Henry VI. They mentioned Pericles.
We come back to that one a lot.
Yeah, we have Amelia and Viola. So,
yep. We had Hamlet.
We had Hamlet.
Did you say that one?
Of course we had Hamlet. We have 20-something college students with mental illness. Of course we have Hamlet.
Mental illness? It's just extreme pressures. Much like Hamlet.
Like home from college, 20-something. He has depression and he just procrastinates the whole play. Like,
I'm not disputing that, but I didn't think any of these guys were depressed until later.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other thing. But, of course, we had Hamlet.
Yes. Those are
they
biggies,
mentioned
maybe.
Did they mention Othello?
No, I was actually surprised they didn't do more, but I'm not sure how that would have played in.
Yeah.
Either at the same time.
Othello, I don't know. I think Othello's more of a tragedy like Macbeth than Macbeth and Lear are like royalty, and then Othello, it's just very contained and it's like
very contained
cast of characters.
And I don't think we talked about The Tempest either, which I was fine with. We briefly did talk about Midsummer because I think they did that the year before. Anyway, so there was a lot of plays.
Pericles. I say Pericles.
You did.
Okay, that one's important.
Okay, so I feel like they in the book just said that they really all started to go crazy with Julius Caesar. Mm-hmm. I feel like that was we agree on that. I mean, it seemed like
I think it's like Macbeth too.
Well, that came after Julius.
No, because
they started rehearsing Julius Caesar, and then Macbeth was coming up.
Yeah, so they performed Macbeth before they performed Julius Caesar. Yes,
and Macbeth started things off oddly because of the Halloween incident. Well, okay, spoilers from here.
Yeah, we're just getting this is one of our favorite scenes in the book, so we should talk about it.
Okay, so they do for Halloween Macbeth, and they each get parts that they are not allowed to tell their 6 classmates about. So they don't practice it. They just show up with their stage direction and their lines.
Yeah.
And so they perform it outside on this beach by a lake, and it was dark at midnight, very atmospheric, bonfires going.
Yeah.
And it's Macbeth.
Come
Macbeth.
On. There's like references to bonfire night in it.
Which is, it was an amazing, like, again, I would have loved to have been in the audience. They come down through the audience for their
they come
scenes.
out, like, because it sounds like on the lake, on the shore, there's audience on like benches in like a semicircle.
It felt very round theater,
yeah, around like the bonfire, and then some of the characters come out of the forest behind the audience, and then some characters come out of the lake.
Oh my gosh, they come up out of the water. But I also loved when he was the ghost that like lingered in the back. Oh, could you just imagine on Halloween night how freaky that would be? Okay, so the play was fabulous, and then they had an after party.
Yeah.
And it went down.
As theater majors
do. Well, yes, it was. Yeah. So it went downhill fast when they started playing games in the water, because of course you end up in the lake because you're, 20-something college again. and they were
not in a desert.
And not in a desert. And they were playing that where you're on top and trying to
chicken fights.
Thank you, that one. And then Richard. Well, we should probably talk about Richard.
Yeah, should we talk about like what types all the characters are?
Yes.
Like what they see themselves as?
I like that plan.
Okay, so Richard is like our tragic hero, our dramatic hero. He's bold and brash, and you either love him or hate him, sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah, that was also mentioned. Okay.
Oliver, our main point of view character, sees himself as a bystander, that he's always playing second fiddle to the hero. Mm-hmm. For like decent enough, but like in a forgettable kind of way. You're not going to remember him. How many of them do you want me to do? Yeah, James.
Let's do all of them. Let's do all 7.
James is like the golden boy. He's the best in their class. He even kind of like looks that way. He has like blonde hair and
which was the opposite of Richard's darker looks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Richard has like black hair and black eyes and very intense. James is a bit more delicate, refined.
We'll say that.
Refined.
Yeah.
He's
princely. They said the golden prince.
The golden prince.
Okay.
He plays the good guys. Alexander is our villain,
Mm-hmm.
because he kind of looks like Salazar Slytherin. That's what I thought. Because he has like that kind of
villain-esque appearance.
yeah,
Sure.
kind of gaunt, dark hair.
Dark hair.
They mention his canine teeth a lot, how they're pointy.
Mm-hmm.
He's also kind of sarcastic and cold in his
He
humor.
was also our diverse character, which was sort of offensive.
Was he?
Yes.
I thought they were all white.
He was
tell.
he's Hispanic.
He is?
Yeah.
I
Or
missed that
Latinx,
beginning.
sorry. Yeah, it was sort of offensive in that sense, but
Yeah.
that's a different subject that
That's a different
we're
thing.
not going to dwell on. Okay, keep going. Girls. Ren.
yeah. Ren is, like, she's described as, like, waifish.
Mhm.
She's Richard's cousin, but she's, like, small. I think she's the shortest. She's, like, very fair blonde.
Yep. Meredith.
Femme fatale. She's auburn. She's,
Yeah. Fiery.
fiery, like, in your face.
The sexy girl.
Yeah. And then Philippa is she doesn't have a type.
She's a chameleon.
She's the chameleon. She's versatile, but she also kind of has her head on straightest.
Yeah, so she fills in on some of the girl roles, and then they said that she could equally fill in for the guy roles, and you wouldn't even know. She just blends and is
Yeah.
often forgotten as well, much like Oliver.
Yeah.
So they tend to get the leftover parts, more or less.
Yeah.
Not to be saying they're not good parts, that it's just not the main parts.
Yeah, and they kind of like they're like, oh, I always get this part, or that's how they know which parts they're going to get.
So Richard, our tragic hero on Halloween night, goes very, very crazy, and he is a very tempestuous, I guess, nature anyway.
Well, 'cause
He
he's
can
mad
be.
about the party got Macbeth.
He's very mad. They mixed the instructors mixed it up a little
Yeah.
bit, and he goes crazy because he wanted the part James had,
He
right?
wanted to be Macbeth.
And so he decides to almost drown James. That was crazy
I thought
sauce.
he was going to be Macduff, because Macduff is kind of like blustery and
Yeah, I don't know
Fantastic.
why he thought he was going to get Macbeth. I never thought he would get Macbeth, even with his typecasting.
well, like the same actor in there's gonna be Shakespeare trivia because I know some of this, but like the same actor who played a lot of like the tragic heroes for Shakespeare's time would have played Macbeth. So like Hamlet, Macbeth, Antony would have been played by the same actor. Been played by Richard Burbage. Oh my gosh, Richard Burbage.
Well done.
That's why his name is Richard.
Oh, until you spelled it out, I still was like, okay.
And there's an Oliver in gosh, what play is that? As You Like It.
Their names were very apropos.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So he, needless to say, thought he was going to get that part. Didn't. Got really, really upset.
He was
got
never
raging
on stage
drunk.
physically.
Yeah, he was just the voiceover.
voice.
Oh man, that was belittling to him.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started to go sour, and we started to see falling aparts from Richard and the group. I mean, he just
Well, because Richard gets very drunk. It doesn't incapacitate him. It just kind of makes him even more invincible because he's like the biggest of them and can physically overpower them as much as his personality overpowers them.
3 or 4 of them to pull him down.
He almost drowns James, is what we're talking around.
Yeah.
He almost
I said
kills
it
him.
flat out already.
Oh yeah. I wasn't sure yet. I was like, wait, why haven't we said it?
I did.
But yeah, he almost drowns James, like almost kills him.
And then he starts. We go back to life as normal, and we all try to pretend this didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then he starts like physically abusing James on set for Julius Caesar, as well as Meredith and others. I mean, he's leaving bruises on these guys, and they're not telling the instructors for whatever reason. They don't want to be tattletales, I guess.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And so then let's just jump right to it. Shortly after Julius Caesar.
Yeah. Richard plays
yeah,
Caesar, by the way.
Okay. So Richard dies. I'm just going to say
Yeah,
it.
Richard dies.
In a horrific way. But I thought he was going to die in Julius Caesar. I really
I thought he was gonna die on stage.
Me too.
Yeah. And I thought James was going to die on stage, too, at the end.
Oh, see, I didn't think James was, but I thought when they all did the attacking on Julius Caesar that was going to be the end of Richard, but it wasn't.
Someone was accidentally going to have, like, a real knife.
Yeah, I totally thought
Yeah.
that. No, I thought several people were going to accidentally have a real knife, so they couldn't blame any one person, too.
Oh, like a...
Like full-on Caesar style. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just... Okay, this first half of the book focuses on 2 of the most famous stabby plays in Shakespeare's corpus, and then he doesn't die via a stabbing.
Which was sort of odd, I thought, too, on that. I mean, he kind of tried to stab. Anyway, So we find Richard floating dead in the lake with his face smashed in.
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead. True that. Because when everybody comes and discovers him the night after the cast party of Julius Caesar, they're debating what to do. So the 6 of them are sitting on the shore discussing what to do, and they hear him like reach up and grumble something.
Yeah, I thought it was like Alexander finds him, and
Yep.
then he goes and gets the others, and they see Richard's hand move, and then they're like, we need to help
need to
him.
do something.
And then
Alexander says, Do
we?
we?
Do we really?
He's been physically abusing all of us on stage and tormenting us and
for
just
months
of this. So they decide in their
do
20-something
nothing.
minds, let's leave this alone.
Do nothing.
So they didn't do anything. They went back home. And
Yeah.
then later he was found dead. Oh, they also watched him choke.
Oh yeah.
And then that's how they knew he was really
Oliver
dead.
gets in the water to see if he's like actually dead.
Yeah.
But like the fear, like it also felt eerie because it felt like there was a fear that if one of them got in the water to help him, that Richard would try to kill them again.
Which is sort of crazy because he's so not able to do that.
Yeah, but also just shows you like where their thinking
Their mind
is.
process was, yeah. Because, I mean, would you in this situation have left Richard? Would you have been like...
I told you what I would have done.
Which was?
I would just call for help.
Me too. I would have called for help. Because... Oh, go ahead.
Well, because like they didn't want to be the ones to kill him, but they also didn't want to be the ones to save him.
Mm-hmm.
So they just needed to like wait. And I feel like if they had called for help, like their dorm, this was happened by their dorm, the tower, the castle, was a mile from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have taken them a minute to get there, and then longer from town.
Right. I don't know how far the school was from town. And I mean, granted, the night before was terrible. I mean, he hit Colin, which was a third-year student.
Yep.
He went crazy mad and yelled at Meredith, and then Meredith and Oliver went upstairs. And then he tried to break down the door, and then he got a kind of physical with his cousin Ren. I mean, it was a bad night, but I'm still not sure that this justified the ends.
Yeah.
But needless to say, they left it, and that was... I mean, but he wouldn't have come back. I mean, I know they were like, this is our tormentor, this is why we're leaving him. But he wouldn't have been, like, even...
But they weren't thinking that way.
I know, they truly were not thinking that way.
It's just like an end to their abuse.
Yeah. Which I can get to, I guess.
It's not great any way you look at it, and that's kind of like academia's like that.
Well, and that was Shakespeare's too. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like so many of, it went bad either way.
Well, Macbeth wrapped up well as a play. Like, we've dealt with the problems. The kingdom's on the right track again. We have the rightful heir. Lear, not so
I was
much.
like, that I guess works. So after that, everybody slowly unravels, and James specifically, I really felt was like a Lady Macbeth with this guilt.
Yeah.
Like, he just starts, he went crazy, was spouting off his speeches and not talking to anybody. And was there also, I don't think there was like an actual out damn spot kind of a moment, but there was something that I feel like he was trying to, am I making that part up? Did that happen where he was trying to do something?
When he was taking a shower?
Maybe that was him.
Because he said, they all got super drunk. And Oliver finds him vomiting in the toilet. And he's just like, oh, I drank too much. And it's like, yeah, this makes complete sense. And then he has something on his face. And Oliver thinks it's a bit of vomit. I wonder if it was gray matter.
I'm wondering that now, too.
And then so he gets back in the shower. And it's just like, ah.
Ew, icky.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though. I hadn't, until that moment, hadn't even went back to that.
Because it wouldn't have been blood. He wouldn't have said it looked like vomit.
So James did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way to say that. So yeah, and then they try to perform without Richard, King Lear, but they're all falling apart. I mean, they all really have post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really understand why the faculties decided to step into this play. I think they were trying to protect them, but I'm not sure.
I think they knew this class there was something wrong, and they tried to intervene so it wouldn't just be them. So maybe they could moderate the emotions.
But I didn't really ever see them stepping in and doing that. in any rehearsal space.
And they also needed an old man to play Lear.
Yeah, but it was just mostly the other guy. I didn't understand why
Camillo.
he was... Yeah.
Yeah.
Their fighting instructor. I thought that was interesting.
Who did he play? Did he play Gloucester?
Yeah.
Gloucester's also an old man.
Oh, so they just needed old dudes?
Yeah.
Okay. That could be... But it was weird because they were like, we haven't even done this play in 50 years. Why are we doing
20.
this place? Oh, it was 20 years. Sorry.
Yeah,
I added a little.
Dramatic effect.
Right. Oh, gracious. Okay, what else do you want to talk about with this one?
Well, let's talk. There's so much. It was so good. We both really liked it.
Do you want to talk about James and Oliver?
We should talk about James and Oliver.
So,
and they were roommates.
Yeah. I think that James was not James. I think Oliver was very much infatuated with James, which then turned to love. But then why did he sacrifice himself for that love?
Martyr.
He is a martyr. Because Oliver goes to prison and is now getting out of prison. You all know that already. For this murder. And even though he and others knew it was James. And then James slowly goes crazy. Do you think that he basically led James to Crazy Town because he didn't let James confess?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of feel like
you have stronger opinions on it than I do.
Well, I just feel like James really kept saying, he told him over and over, I need to confess, I need to unburden myself, and Oliver wouldn't do it, and I do feel like that was the demise of James. Whether he would have ridden his guilt, like, after confessing, if it would have gone away, I don't know that part, but I didn't totally understand why Oliver, I guess, martyred himself. That was, I think he wanted to endear James to him and keep him to him, but...
I think... I don't know why, because, like, is he a martyr? He didn't seem particularly prone to martyrdom throughout the rest of the novel.
Right.
Like, he was kind of, I don't want to say the punching bag, but he seemed the most level-headed at times. Like, that he wasn't getting caught up in his dramatic roles, but he also didn't have the super dramatic ones. He wasn't playing your Macbeths or your, the other Shakespeare characters that I've read that I can't suddenly think of. Like, Romeo or whoever.
Right.
And I've read like half the plays. Why can't I think of any of the characters?
It's okay.
But he wasn't playing those, so maybe he always just thought that was his role to like take the bullet for the main guy.
Well, he does make the comment of, would you change the ending of Romeo and Juliet and have Benvolio kill Tybalt? And would that be a better story? And I think he was trying to rewrite history and do that. But I don't know if it was the right thing to do. I don't know if this would have ended much differently than it did if he would have just let James confess.
I have a theory that like it would have come back on all of them more if Oliver hadn't just taken all of it.
Whole. And that's definitely possible, and which that would have been really sad for everybody else.
So then he's like trying to save all of them,
right?
Which I think makes more sense
than just saving James.
Yeah.
Okay. I can agree to that.
Because I think he also does really want to save James, but also that he does want to protect all of them.
All of the group. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you think about the art imitating life part? I mean, do you really think they were struggling to keep themselves separate from the roles they were playing, and that therefore this led them to their wicked deeds?
I think we're supposed to think that because it makes a compelling motif for a novel.
I think so too.
But I don't know. Like my friend who was in theater, they talked about like switching on and like switching off that you do for your character, and that like didn't come up here, or that they just wouldn't.
Well, they talked about centering and everything,
and
which
James
is what
was very
you should
method.
be doing. He was very method. I think he just went crazy, just like Lady Macbeth with the guilt. I know you said that that's not necessarily the case for Lady Macbeth as well.
It just depends on how you read her.
Right, I agree, but I feel like that's really, and they were all seeing the ghost of Richard. I mean, in some ways, this was its own Shakespeare play.
Oh, Richard III and Richard II, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got that part.
Oh yeah, but
yeah, going back to the other
Richard
anyway,
Burbage.
Richard. Yes, I kind of thought that they took their characters too far, but I think partly that was because they lived and breathed Shakespeare. They talked about it in their daily lives. They were around each other all day long.
Yeah, they speak it as easily as they speak prose.
They really did. I mean, that was amazing to have all those witty comebacks from every place on it you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I felt like they were very much getting stuck, and he was becoming a tragic character because of that. And even like I felt like Meredith was very much stuck in her role.
Yeah, she even like talked about that. Like if you if you have a girl play a whore enough times, she starts to act like one.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
says that at one of the parties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even Richard, like his violence just started to escalate. Like I just felt like they just got really trapped in, and there was so much pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then do we blame their instructors, Gwendolyn and Frederick, for pressuring them and putting them into such a space where they have to become these characters so intensely? I mean, no.
This whole school is a cult.
They say that.
Yeah, it is. It's like that.
And then I mean, because then it did change the way they taught things. Changed afterwards. So you have
small and insular. They're always being told they're special, and
while also being put through the rigors to like. You know, Gwendolyn did her whole psychology thing, like, I'm going to pull this out of you by the end of the year.
Yeah.
That was kind of intense and crazy. I mean, you'd have to crack under this, I feel like, at some point. And
there's the one dancer. They talked about the one other death at the school.
Oh,
a dancer committed suicide.
Mm-hmm. So it was very intense.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
Should we talk about the end?
Yeah, go for it.
So the end... Oliver is out of prison, and he's talking to Colburn, and Colburn's like, I'm retired, or I'm changing jobs, so you can tell me everything that's off the record. And so Oliver is doing that. And at the end, Philippa is like there when he's like done telling the story, and she's like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I just really want to see James. And then they tell him James has been dead for 4 years. He drowned himself off the coast of Northern California. I guess that's where Del Norte is. I have no idea.
I didn't look it up either.
Well, James is from San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I figured it's
gotta be somewhere
Northern
there.
California. Yes, James drowned himself. Also how Richard died.
Yeah. Well, I think that was appropriate. I think that's why he did it.
Yeah, that's why he did it.
And not to mention Richard tried to drown him. I mean, there was a lot of drownings.
If they drown and they come up, it's a baptism. If they don't, they're Ophelia.
I know, I thought that too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the love of his life is gone, and they didn't tell him for 4 years. But
there were 2 letters James left. One was like the typical suicide note, and he like honors Oliver's wish of not confessing anything.
Which I was actually really impressed with, because the guilt was killing him, clearly.
Quite literally.
And he still didn't say it, so that was pretty impressive.
And then the other is just a note for Oliver, and it's a speech from Pericles that when they got drunk and were on the beach and had kind of like a misadventure, but it was fine. And it was one he kept saying over and over, and it has like the implication of hope and asking for help. And Oliver gets this like brain wave of like maybe he's still alive, and so he Googles articles on James's death and finds out that his body was never found.
So, do you think James is still alive?
Yes, because I love The Winter's Tale and I want a Winter's Tale ending.
Me too. Glass half full. This was not for naught. This was all for naught. This wasn't all for naught. There we go.
Well, I was wondering if it was going to be Winter's Tale, because like at the beginning of The Winter's Tale, like the young prince dies, and it's like by the ending, it's like, oh, it's happy, but there's still this death of a child lingering.
Right.
So I thought it was going to be that kind of death, that like, oh, we're kind of happy, we're moving on, but there's still the death of your closest friend, love of your life, hanging over you.
But wait, the statue came to life!
Yeah, the statue came to life! Hermione came to life.
Yeah, I thought that too. And I feel like if he left that note, there had to be a reason. And I want to join Oliver and say that that's what happened.
And I also hope we aren't killing our gays.
Agreed. Because we already had issues with a diverse character.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. It was fabulous.
We really liked it.
We highly recommend it. I think this is our highest rating we've both given so far on the books we've discussed.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else
I don't think we do either.
really to say on that.
Scene.
Yeah. Are you reading anything new, or are you...
I was trying to read Julius Caesar while this was going on, and I didn't make that much more progress in it. But I want to read.
That was such funny timing. I still can't get over the fact that you walked in telling me you were going to finish Julius Caesar. You hadn't picked this one up yet. And I was like, did you do it on purpose? But no.
I read it before too, but it's weird reading Roman plays after studying classics. Because like, Shakespeare pulls his historical accounts from, like, Plutarch and Suetonius, which are very dramatic.
And then he puts in his English stuff as well.
Yeah, there's
into
a clock in Julius Caesar.
Worlds. Yeah, that's not exactly accurate.
Or there's, like, hats at one point, and I'm like, Romans didn't wear hats.
Sure they did.
They did in Saturnalia, but this was not Saturnalia. This was in March.
Right. Oh, we didn't even say Beware the Ides of March. The best part of Julius Caesar.
They did, et tu, Brute.
They did.
Which he didn't actually say. Shakespeare made that up. He probably spoke Greek. And he probably said, Kai su teknon.
Did you love that there were Greek and
Latin students who talked to each other in Greek and Latin? Yeah.
I felt like you might have been in that group.
I didn't talk in Latin because, like, how you're taught, well, at least how you're taught Latin in, like, other schools, you're not taught to speak it. You're taught to, like, translate it and analyze it like literature. It's pretty kind of dead.
Anyway, I totally thought of you for that scene.
I did too. I was like, yes, these are my people.
I also wanted to read, I want to read Macbeth and Julius Caesar.
I love Macbeth. It's short, too.
Again.
It's like the shortest
and actually,
play.
I kind of want to read King Lear again, even though it's absolutely tragic.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time I've read that. The other two I can kind of remember when I last read them, but that one has been a long time.
Yeah,
but
Lear
maybe
just
do the
kind of,
other
like,
two.
rips your heart out and tramples on it. And doesn't tell, and tells you everything's going to be terrible.
Yeah. Well, at least you know up front.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anything else you read?
Not right now. Do we want to preview next week's book?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. So we are, but one thing beforehand, before we go to that, did you think this was a mystery?
I'm not the person to ask because I'm not super familiar with the genre unless someone hands me, like, here's a mystery. I didn't think it was. I thought it was more, it wasn't necessarily about how he died or, like, who was going to die. It was more about the relationships between them.
Yeah,
so it was much more like what they say about Julius Caesar. It's not about the death. It's about that he was killed by his best friends.
I totally thought that when they quoted. Wow. We were set up to think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this has a murder in it, but it was not important. Like, he wasn't really even actively looking to find out which one in his group could have killed them. Like, they all knew it could have been any of them, but nobody really wanted to know, and so they didn't pursue it. He really, truly stumbled upon all of the... We didn't even talk about his family and sister. And
there's a lot to talk about with this one.
So, yeah, anyway, next week.
Next week, we're going back to fantasy, and we're reading Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I'm excited for this.
Me too. It's a spin-off of a Mexican fairy tale.
Is it a young woman and a Mayan death god embark on a life-changing journey in this one-of-a-kind fairy tale inspired by Mexican folklore.
Folklore. That was close. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. It'll be a very different change from Shakespeare. Probably still tragic. I don't know why. I just feel like there's going to be tragedy just because that's where I am right now.
I kind of want to read some tragedies, though. They're so good.
Like plays of tragedy?
Yeah.
So we're off to read Shakespeare this weekend.
Yeah. Or history plays. I like the history plays, too.
I haven't read any of the history plays, which is funny because I'm pretty obsessed with Henry VIII.
I
mean, not that there's a Henry VIII.
There is.
Oh, is there? Oh, so I should really read that.
Henry IV Part 1 is really good.
I've heard that
like
one.
that one.
Yeah.
I do like Hal.
Yeah. So, all right. This was a good read.
It was a good read.
So go out and read it.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.